Welcome everyone. Happy Freezing Tuesday from Des Moines. Thank you so much for joining us for our weekly Small Biz Essential webinar. First things first, my name is Sierra Ladruma. I am the project manager for the Iowa Center's Women's Business Center. The Iowa Center's Women's Business Center is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. You will all receive an email after this event from my colleague, Ben Schultz. Thanking you for attending and how to connect to our speaker and a form to complete. Please do us a major favor and take some time to fill this form out. This information allows us to continue providing free educational programming for small business owners in Iowa. Now go ahead and please take some time to locate the chat function on your Zoom screen so you can join the conversation by asking questions or adding comments. We are joined today by Ashleigh Leon, Creative Director of the Side Garage. Ashleigh is going to share the importance of establishing your why to maintain a steady pace and keep your business thriving. Ashleigh has a background in graphic design, advertising, and screen print. She is the creative workhorse for the two-woman team at the Side Garage. The Side Garage is a print shop, design studio, and screen print resource located right here in Des Moines with a simple mission of make great things and support others to do the same. Ashleigh, thank you so much for being with us today. The screen is yours, my friend.
Thank you. I am equally excited and nervous to be here with you guys today. Sierra kind of took over my first slide, so there's some stuff. One thing that I did want to touch on basically is that when we started our business out of the side of our garage. And when we launched it, we were a sole proprietorship. And then when we added another employee, we transitioned to an S Corp, which ended up being really beneficial for us. Another thing, some of our services, I know she kind of like talked about us being a screen print shop, but we offer on-site screen printing, custom screen printing, design services, and educational opportunities for screen printing as well. So with that little tag-on introduction to what Sierra touched, I'm excited to share with you guys what we're going to be talking about today. So today I'm going to share something that I really feel has been an integral part to our business and the life cycle of it to this point. 4 years kind of feels like a small cycle, but we've learned a lot in that journey. And that topic is building a foundation. So much like an actual physical foundation, it's something to be monitored, kind of looked upon, might need a repair here and there, and in some cases it might need to be rebuilt entirely. So whether you're new to the game or you're a veteran player, I do feel like there are going to be a few things within this presentation that hopefully you can take and apply to your business journey. So the first and most important thing that I want to tag in on here is defining your why. So your why is the purpose, the cause, or belief that drives you and or your business forward. So why is that important? Defining your why is basically your golden compass. So it's your truth, it's your guiding light, it's the thing that helps you navigate your way through almost every decision that you make moving forward. You can use it to create an individual why, or you can use it to create an organizational why. I personally would recommend doing both. So a lot of times when you are an entrepreneur or you set out to start your own business, you're doing it because there's something personally inside you that wants to pursue this. So a lot of times it can be really beneficial to create your own personal why to also in turn help funnel your organizational why. And the way that we create our why is we kind of steal a little template from our friend Simon Sinek. I don't know if anybody has read any books from Simon. You can kind of see the basic template there. But the first blank represents your contribution. So it's what you're bringing to the table with your business or your offerings. The contribution you make to the world through your why. The second blank represents the impact of your contribution. So it's kind of how it lands, what you're delivering, how it supports your community or whatever your motive is for your contribution. Couple of examples here. So example 1 If you were maybe in the world of consulting or life coaching or something to that matter, your why might be to empower and educate so that people can improve their lives and achieve their goals. Example 2, say you're the owner of a coffee shop or a local bar. Your why might be to create a gathering place and build relationships so that you enrich the lives of your community. And last but not least, our why at the side garage is to make great things so that we can support others to do the same. All right. And the next thing is aligning your product with your why. And the reason why this is so important is that when you align your product with your why, you're creating a level of authenticity that really resonates with your customer or client. And if we've learned anything over the last couple of years, is that authenticity is something that people really value and hold true to, because it's something that they kind of thrive and grasp for. So why is this important? Aligning your product helps you understand the places where you and your product need to live in order to survive. So for example, kind of going back to that idea of a local coffee shop or bar, if you are trying to create a gathering place, it probably makes sense for you to be in a place where people are already gathering. So that could be a downtown district or a local neighborhood or something like that where there are already people there. Another example could be if you are somebody who makes sustainable products or owns a sustainable shop, it would make sense for you to have those things in a place that supports those same ideas. The other thing that happens when you align your why with your product is that it allows you to say yes, but also to say no to something or someone that doesn't align with it. And I know that this can be a really hard one for a lot of people because it's really, really difficult to turn away opportunities for work. But ultimately, what happens when you say yes to things that don't align with you or your why or your company's directive? In many cases, what you do is you do a disservice not only to yourself, but also to the client. So, kind of hopping back into that idea of somebody who um, owns a sustainable business or has sustainable products, it's probably going to be really important to you and your customers that you have those things exist in places and with other people who are exhibiting the same direction and fall in line with that why. Additionally, some examples for us, there have been some times where we've been approached by people who want to work with us on like a branding project or t-shirt product or something like that. And we know that we won't be the ones to offer them the best service, and that's okay, because there's somebody else out there who is. So something that we do in an event where we feel like we're not the best fit is we help them find somebody who is. So you're still serving that customer, you're still maintaining that relationship, but you're finding someone else more aligned with them that can help give them a quality service and quality product. Last thing on aligning your product with your service is that it serves as a guide as you develop and evolve your product and service offerings. A lot of times in businesses, you may not offer the same thing at each point or sector of your business life cycle. And you may want to add new things, you might want to change new things. But as long as you have, your why to help serve as a guide as you start to develop and change and bring in those new services and offerings, it'll happen a little bit more seamlessly without as much friction. So on these next few topics that we're going to be talking about, I'm actually going to be giving examples of how we have implemented these things during high seasons and low seasons of our own business. To start off, for aligning our product or service, when we first started the business, we started out of the side of our garage, like I mentioned before. So our risk was lower, which in many cases means that we have the ability to maybe do something that's a little bit unorthodox or maybe non-traditional. So when we first launched our business, we focused on mobile screen printing and kind of creating this experience that invited people to be a part of the process and make things with their own two hands. So kind of going back to our why, to make great things and support others to do the same, we wanted to create an environment where other people could make something. During our low, I'm honestly probably going to be referencing 2020 quite a bit for lows on this one, as I'm sure many of you can relate to. We decided to turn our focus on eliminating financial barriers for our clients, for our customers, to test their big ideas and still continue to make things. So we did this through a number of ways. The first being that we created a pre-order platform that took away the upfront financial burden of buying a bulk order of shirts. We also created campaigns that we did in partnership with other organizations to kind of help leverage our network and their network to generate support. And ultimately, we started giving away free masks and buy one, give one models with some of our retail products. Next topic is going to be a student in your industry. I know many of us probably thought that we were done with education when we last threw off our hat and celebrated that chapter, but I cannot encourage lifelong learning enough. And while I believe in the whole self of learning, I also believe in educating yourself within your industry, because even though the crux of your industry may stay the same, make t-shirts. That hasn't changed since the 40s, I mean, maybe the application a little bit, but the actual practice of making a shirt has been the same. There's a customer and there's a supplier. But within that time frame, the actual applications, the process, the equipment, the software, the knowledge, the technology, that has all evolved greatly. So the reason why it's important to be a student of your industry is that it helps you gauge where the industry is heading and how your product or service can succeed within it. And how do you do this? Most of these things will seem pretty basic, pretty self-explanatory, but they work, and they worked for several years. So I can't encourage you enough to kind of seek out books, podcasts, blogs, classes, social media. I know social media, I personally have a love-hate relationship with social media, but to create a healthier relationship with it, I'm trying to view it as an opportunity to learn. So using social media more as an educational platform versus a mindless scrolling Sunday afternoon platform. And when you're doing this, it's really important to follow people who are where you want to be. Who are those people within your industry that are just crushing it, and you see them doing things. What are they doing? What are they doing differently? Are the things that they're doing differently in alignment with your why? Can you implement those things as you start to move forward? Trailblazers in the industry. This is something that we do a lot. Like I said, maybe I didn't mention it actually, but I've been in the screen printing industry for somewhere between 9 to 10 years now at this point. So I've seen a lot of the same, and I've also seen a lot of changes and shifts. And when I left it to figure out what I wanted to do next, I started watching and following people who were kind of shaking the industry up. And that is basically where we got the idea to try mobile screen printing here in Des Moines. So you may not always be the first one to cross the finish line, and that's okay, because you get to watch somebody else try it and you can learn from them and what they do. So I highly recommend kind of watching people that are breaking barriers in your industry as well. The other thing that could be really beneficial is to follow people that are in adjacent industries. So kind of going back to the idea of that coffee shop. If you own a coffee shop, it might be beneficial to follow people that are in retail, or it might be beneficial to follow bookstores or different educational organizations that focus on learning or gathering or something like that, because those are places where people are doing things that you might be able to integrate into your own business with how you sell your coffee beans or coffee mugs, or having weekly or monthly set times for people to meet for like a book club or something like that. So again, that goes back to that why of creating a place where people can gather and ultimately enriches their lives. Next on that list of people to follow, educators in the fields of marketing, social media, and finance. I went to Drake University. I have a degree in advertising. And that's a world that I lived in for 4 years, and it still feels like it goes over my head sometimes because of how much it changes. The great thing about educators in these industries is that they are sharing information with people because they see the benefits that it can offer to small businesses and companies like ourselves. And ultimately, they're doing that as an act of being a business themselves, you know? And many of them could be single marketing businesses, or, you know, they could be small like us, but they're doing it because they see the value and they want to contribute that to you. And that is something that you can capitalize on. So again, I can't encourage that enough as well. Number 3, ask questions. Now it's easier more than it's ever been to poll people or ask them what they think or how they feel about your product or your service. It's kind of like a temperature check. Am I still in line with what I set out to do? Is this thing that I want to test going to be in line with what I want to do? You know, I'm sure many of you use Instagram and Facebook, but they make it really easy for you to check in. But like, it goes beyond that. It could be a group Zoom call with some of your #1 customers or repeat buyers or something like that. Having this private affair where you just reach out to them and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about testing this. What do you think? And then having the ability to take that information and make calculated experiments that support your why. Okay, so a couple of examples for how we've taken being students in our industry and applied it to our company through a high would be incorporating workshops and screen print equipment rental. This is something that we pulled quite a bit, probably in our second year of being a business, just to see if there would be an interest or a demand for that type of opportunity for the community. We had the financial stability and means to support it. We also ended up starting to look for a space once we realized that this was a higher need or desire or asked for thing moving forward. For a low, we created Ignition Inc., which is an online pre-order platform. Basically what it is we would create an online store for individuals and companies and organizations that would be a part of a larger community page for cross-promoting and shopping. And we basically tried to create a community within itself, but create something that, again, goes back to eliminating those financial barriers and encouraging people to make things. And it wasn't an original idea. So this was something that we saw those trailblazers doing before us. They were even doing it before 2020. They were working with other companies to help eliminate that barrier. And it was just an existing idea that we took and made our own. Next thing, in alignment with your why, is investing in your community. And the reason why I think this is important is that For years and years, businesses have been told that the lifeblood of their company is found in the customer alone. And while I really do feel like there's some truth in that, I mean, if you don't have customers, you don't really have a business, but I feel like it goes beyond that. And I feel like it goes beyond just the customer. So investing in your community is important because when you invest in your community, you're investing in something bigger than yourself. Um, I read or I listened to a podcast several months ago, and I tried really hard to find it because I'm real big on making sure I source my information. So hopefully by the time this gets uploaded, I'll be able to have that source. But the person on the podcast said something that challenged an idea and a saying that I had heard for years as an athlete. And basically, the one that I had heard my whole life was raise the bar. So you want to raise the bar to elevate your game. This guy said, raise the floor so that you can bring others up with you. So as you raise your bar, you raise your ceiling, you're consistently raising the floor and bringing others up with you. So that's been something that has really stuck with me and motivates me to keep investing in our community, because if we all move forward, that's better for everybody, right? When you invest in people, you invest in your community, you develop those good relationships. What do these good relationships do? They help you have a pulse on why people value your product and service. So going back to that previous section where you're able to engage in these conversations and poll your people and ask them things, they're probably going to be more inclined to have direct and honest and authentic feedback for you if you're investing in them and you're giving them authentic reality of who you are and what you're trying to do. The next thing is it helps you identify needs and gaps to offer authentic solutions. Every community has a gap. Every community has a need that isn't being met. And that's something that you're taught in business too. Where's the need? What can I make? How can I meet it? It's no different than if you're already an established business and there are needs and opportunities and gaps within your own community. Why couldn't you be the one to help fulfill those? How can you fulfill those? And again, how do you fulfill those in a way that's in alignment with your why? The other thing that good relationships will do is extend your network of support and broaden your reach. And lastly, well, this may not be lastly, I don't remember, but it opens the door for collaboration and co-promotion, which I feel like we saw a lot of in 2020, which was really cool. Who should you be building relationships with? Definitely your customers. Again, going back to that idea of authenticity, you're instilling trust, you're building that relationship that isn't just linear. It's a relationship that goes out and comes back into you too. Your staff, when you invest in your staff, you're investing in their whole self, not just the self that shows up for work every day. Companies in adjacent industries. Again, this is a great opportunity to learn, but back up to that previous section, it's a great opportunity for collaboration and co-promotion. Like Sierra mentioned, we're located in historic Valley Junction. And one of the things that we saw happening during 2020 is that several of these stores down here found ways to co-promote and support each other on their social media platforms to help lift up the district as a whole during that time. Last but not least, your competitors. And I know that one seems a little weird, but your competitors are people who are also educated in your field. Your competitors are the people you can talk shop with, like whenever there's something new coming in or software, an opportunity or something like that. But they're also those people who are probably going to be the most equipped to help you when you're in a pinch. There's been a handful of times throughout the last few years that if we were short a product, then we could reach out to a couple of companies nearby. Or if we weren't going to be able to fulfill a client's needs or deadline or something like that, we had people to direct them to. So we're still offering them customer service. We're still helping them attain their goal, but we're also building those relationships with competing companies. Right. So again, bringing in our high and low examples. During our high, so when we first started the business, we actually went into it with the intention of not offering custom screen printing or design services. We wanted to focus solely on our on-site screen printing and events and interactive experiences. As we progressed in our first year, we had several clients and customers who were reaching out, asking if we would be willing to do design or custom screen printing services for them. And that wouldn't have happened if either of us hadn't built relationships with people we were working with. We wouldn't have received that feedback. And a lot of those inquiries and requests came from a previous life to the side garage. So those were relationships that we built and we fostered prior to being in this company. And again, because we were in a high period, it was easier for us to add a service and another workload and try something in addition to what we were trying to focus on. For a low, we incorporated our giving campaigns through 2020. So kind of going back to investing in the community, but also listening to the needs of the community and having those relationships to be able to decipher ways to do that, and show support and show that we're bought in and that we want to show up even when things aren't great. What we did is we had a Choose Kindness series where we had our buy one, give one model. We started giving away free masks with every purchase. And again, we offered campaigns to support local causes and organizations by sharing sales of shirts. Our last topic that I'm going to touch on is preparing for a plot twist. So I can be a pretty positive person, but I am definitely one of those people that is constantly like, okay, worst case scenario. Like if any of you guys watch This Is Us and you watch how they play worst case scenario, this is me all the time. So prepare for a plot twist. And why is that important? It's important because if you've already lived the scenario or one similar, it's not going to seem as scary when you get there. And no, you're not going to get every scenario exactly right, but there are going to be concepts within that scenario that could happen at any given point. So nobody saw 2020 coming. If anybody did, they're like holding out on a lot of us right now, but like nobody could have really predicted that that was going to happen. But the implications of what happened to several businesses could have been planned and prepared for in some way. Not solved, not prevented, but they could have been prepared for to potentially make it a little bit less burdensome. So how do you prepare for a plot twist? You plan. And the first step for planning is to assess your risk. So like your location. For example, if you are a retail shop or you have a location that is in somewhere in a northern region of the country that experiences winter weather, it's probably pretty likely that you're going to have to shut down due to poor weather conditions. If your business thrives on having your doors open, how can you plan in other months to kind of offset these potential off days in later months to make that less of a hit or less of an impact on your business? The other thing to monitor are industry history and trends. Typical trends for screen printing are high and low moments follow the seasons and big events. So if it's warm, we have a lot of people wanting t-shirts. If it's cold, we don't want as many wanting t-shirts. They might want sweatshirts. When school happens, everybody's just buckling down trying to make sure their kid gets to school on time. So there's kind of these trends that follow life outside of the industry that we've been able to monitor and see continually happen. Next, is to assess the items that are essential to your business. Is there a piece of equipment that you need to function that if it went out, what would you do? Do you have a backup plan? Do you have reserve finances to buy a new one if it were to go out? Do you need to find an alternative service or a backup generator or something like that? Supply chain. This is something that I feel like a lot of people were hit pretty hard with last year. In the event that you are unable to get your product due to a bump or a roadblock in supply chain, do you have buffers or protocols in place? For us, we generally try to let people know that if things are starting to look a little iffy, that our turnaround time might be a little bit longer. Or we try to make sure that the product or thing that we suggest to them has ample stock before we send over pricing or try to get numbers from them. Next, employees. Do you have some type of protocol in place if somebody is unable to fulfill their duties? Do you have people in your back pocket that might be available to step in at a time when somebody's needing to step out? And then lastly, contracted services and businesses, which kind of goes with employees too. So say you're using a service or a business for a part of something that you're offering, and they go through some financial turmoil and they have to shut down. What is your plan in the event that you lose that component, and how does that impact or affect your business moving forward? Something else that I believe is really important is to establish your bottom line. So for us, our bottom line is that point at which we feel like there's no return or we need to start making some drastic changes or things like that. So it's kind of like your threshold that you can't allow your finances to dip below without drastically impacting your actual functionality as a business. We kind of call it the eject button. So like at what point are we going to need to really think about taking a step back? Consistently review your profit and loss over time. And the reason why this is important is because it'll help you identify trends to your specific company or your specific region, your specific market, because our market here in Des Moines, Iowa is going to be very different from the market in Chicago just in screen printing alone. And so while there are some overarching trends within the industry, there are going to be some more specific trends to individual businesses based on where they are, the type of work they do, and things like that. Identify resources. This was something that we really leaned pretty heavily on last year as well. SBA, Iowa Center, banks, financial professionals, state programs, your relationships. So going back to investing in your community, you can really develop relationships with people who are in fields beyond yours that could offer you their services during a time like this, or insider advice or things like that as well. And the last thing is to write your ending. So I highly recommend that once you assess your risk, you can kind of write your own stories, but also, or your scenarios, so to speak. So you can write your scenarios, but also write your ending, how you're going to approach them. What's your plan? Whether you write that digitally or you actually write it out in something, I do recommend writing those things out because it kind of becomes your own personal worst case scenario reference book that you can reference in the event that something does impact those things that become at risk. Okay, so for our example, during our high when we started the business, we actually started the business both working full-time jobs. And we did this intentionally because we wanted to develop an emergency fund so that if we did have a big piece of equipment or something like that that went under, we already had those funds in it to provide that financial assistance if needed. And we also came up with a contingency plan. So our bottom line, or that threshold I mentioned before, we established that early on. And again, we had already talked about it. We had already been there. So it was easier to kind of live if it were to approach. During our low season, like I mentioned, we leaned really heavily on our bank and our accountant for guidance and pursued financial aid and assistance through federal and state programs. So just to recap, building a foundation, define your why, align your product or service, be a student in your industry, invest in your community, and prepare for a plot twist. And that's all I got.
Actually, that was great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I love that you said, I guess I never thought of that with the ceilings, right? Of raise the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. I know,
Bring
me
others
too.
up.
It was like one of those.
Yeah, for real. Okay, so we got questions.
Okay.
First one I have for you is, do you see an upcoming low season as an ideal time to plan for the future or to start rolling out your new stuff? So like products, services, or initiatives.
Okay, say that first part to me one more time.
Do you see an upcoming low season as an ideal time to plan for the future or to start rolling out your new stuff?
I think both. I think you can do both, honestly. I think it would be in your best benefit to be continually planning and evolving that plan as your business changes. Depending on the industry that you are in, bringing in new products and services could be beneficial, but you could also look at what you're already offering and how you can improve and make those even stronger too. So maybe there's something that you've been doing for an extended period of time, almost to the point that it just feels like second nature, but you could revisit that too and try and kind of revamp it a little bit without completely reinventing the wheel or banking on something new.
Yeah, I get that. In low seasons, how do you reach out to new or existing clients? So what tools and methods do you use to keep people engaged with your business, even through regular low seasons?
I would say that something that has really benefited us is being actively involved in the community. And the reason I say that is because there's only so much that you can kind of do on your own, even if you have a great social media following or a presence or something like that. But the power of that extended network, so the power of word of mouth, is unmatched. And that is something that we did. So from our conception to where we are now, we tried to make sure that we were actively seeking out opportunities to develop those relationships early. And we did that by sending somebody a direct message and saying, hey, do you want to grab coffee? I think we might have some shared interests. Or creating a space for people to come gather and come meet so that we could engage with them directly. Obviously, we're currently living in a world where that's a little bit harder to do, but I do feel like there are some ways that you can be direct with people on social media through a messenger, or maybe it's just something as simple as, hey, I noticed you liked my post. I don't remember seeing you before. Let me know if there's any questions I can answer or something to that effect.
Yeah. Okay. Do you ever reevaluate your why? If so, how often? Okay, there's 3 questions in this. Okay. Do you ever reevaluate your why? If so, how often? Is this done because there is a product or service you'd like to add or because you want to brainstorm?
Yes. So the why that we had at the beginning of the presentation is like an evolved, stripped back why. Like I felt like when we first did it, it was like 3 sentences long. So I think a good point to kind of evaluate your why is anywhere between 2 to 3 times a year. If you want to get ambitious, 1 each quarter. And that's not even to like evaluate it with the intention of changing it, but just to see like, is this something that still makes sense? Is this something that I still feel like it falls in line with what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve and the impact that we're trying to contribute? I don't think you can ever evaluate it too much. And I don't think that it necessarily needs to be tied to products. Like, I don't think it needs to be changed because of a product or service, because in reality, your product or service is going to be in line with your why. Does that make sense, or did I misunderstand?
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Okay, so I know this is going to be different for every single business, right? But what would you suggest? I mean, I guess through your experience, how much of a financial cushion is considered safe to help guard against low seasons if you are able to save?
Yeah. I would say you could almost take a page out of financial advised books for personal finances. So your actual operational costs, I would estimate that you'd probably want at least somewhere between 6 to 12 months of that put up. Mainly because that should be like a general time frame for you to establish how you need to best move forward. And that could be something as simple as like, okay, well, do I need to entertain the idea of having investors to help prolong the business? Do I need to look at business loans? Do I need to look at alternative things? Are there ways that I can recoup and get back in the game? It just gives you a little bit more time to do that, because I do think you're right. It is going to be individualistic to each business. A lot of businesses may not have a huge hard cost. Like for us, we have cost of goods and things like that that really impact stuff. Whereas somebody who primarily focuses on digital services, there's not necessarily as much of a hard cost that plays into it. So.
Okay. So I have a couple questions on competition.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is, what are some ways you worked with your competition to make it through the pandemic or create a new project together?
Let's see. I mean, specifically, really a lot of it was like promotion and interaction. That was kind of something that happened for us. Celebrating their like cool projects and things that they were doing. But I would say a lot of us just kind of like checked in and tried to see if there were products or ways that we could like help each other in a pinch. I mean, like I said, there were a handful of moments like that. I wouldn't say that there were any direct projects that we worked together on, but a lot of like moral support, like, hey, how's it going? Or you guys hanging in there? Things like that too happened. But
okay, so when we meet with clients one-on-one or in some sort of just small group training, one of the things we say is do your research, create your target market, as well as go reach out to your competitors.
mm-hmm.
And then there is that little bit of hesitancy, right, to reach out to people who are considered your competition. What's some advice that you have in a way that makes that a little bit more comfortable to do so, and kind of take away that like we're not a threat or anything like that. We just want to learn and build a relationship with you.
I mean, in a lot of ways, just prefacing it with that. I think, acknowledging their success and being complimentary of the things that they've achieved can also be a good thing to do. But in reality, just being honest with them, being like, hey, I'm just trying to learn. Would you be willing to share these things with me? Could I bounce some ideas off of you? Because the reality is there are going to be some people out there that are not going to be okay with that. That's just, how that particular person might interact. But when you find that person who is, the knowledge and the relationship that can be shared there is really great.
So okay. So what if someone does say no? How have you handled that? Or maybe they don't say no, they just don't respond. Or
Yeah, no, you know what? I was gonna say that I don't think that we've encountered that. And maybe that could be attributed to um, the authenticity that's found in our willingness to want to support a bunch of people, or just kind of our story. The other thing, kind of going back to that first question, sorry, and then I'll bounce back. I don't know if I can answer this one because I haven't experienced it. But I think if somebody says no, you just politely decline, or like politely say thank you. I appreciate you, getting back to me, and then just kind of move on.
Yeah.
In regards to the other thing, it can also be really beneficial to reach out to people who are in your industry in different markets. The people that are in your industry in different markets are probably going to be more apt to share knowledge because you're not a direct competitor to them.
Okay, excellent. How do you, or are there certain questions that you and Elena go through when someone comes to you to partner in some way, and you question if that aligns to your why? Do you recognize if you have like 2 or 3 questions that you have to really just talk about with her?
Um, I would say that a lot of times it's more in how the person speaks about their project. We really want to align ourselves with people that are invested in the community as well. What is their driving force behind it? So I wouldn't necessarily say that there are specific questions for that. Now, there might be questions on the back end in terms of like production. So, like there's that idea of somebody who feels like they're in alignment with you, but then there's also that concept of, does their actual product or the service that they're seeking for us align with our capabilities? Can we do it well for them? That might be where we ask more questions, and try to assess if it's something that we could do a good job of.
Okay, so now I have some printing questions. Let me see here. What questions are most important to ask prospective printers / screen printers?
Um, let's see. I think some of the most important questions are, to kind of identify their process, what they need, how you can best assist them, to move forward with your project. So a lot of shops may operate different. So that's kind of the interesting thing about screen printing. There's this overarching practice. There's the same equipment, same this stuff, but everybody does it differently. I can guarantee you that like our process is not exactly equivalent to a process of a screen printing shop on the other side of town. But some of the things that they're going to cover with you are probably going to be, what kind of garment do you want? How many ink colors does your design have, or do you need design services? When do you need it done? So those are just kind of like project specific things. But other things to ask them are, what kind of print style do you focus on? How many colors can you print up to? What does your turnaround time look like right now? Do you offer discounts for XYZ? So if you're a part of an organization or a school or something like that, do they potentially support that through discounts? Those are just some questions that you could ask.
So one of the topics you talked about was how important it is to show up authentically,
Mhm.
just in everything. Now, especially with social media, there's already this looming just hesitancy that entrepreneurs have of what do I post, what content, what pictures, things like that. What advice do you have when it comes to showing up authentically through your like newsletters, through social media, through in-person conversations?
Um, it's a great question, or like a great question to figure out how to formulate, because like, it's kind of like you feel like, um, it should be. You feel like it should be easier to be yourself, right? But it's
Mhm.
it's not, because we all have our own qualms about ourselves or how we're presenting ourselves and things like that. Um, I would say the thing to kind of really push towards, or try to do when you're doing that, is to find the areas within your business that speak truth to you, the individual, but also, speak truth to what you're offering. So we do a lot of shots of Elena at the press because that's where the magic happens, like, and she's got a great smile. So that's why we do that. But for, you know, maybe another instance, like it could be you're at your favorite local coffee shop getting ready to meet with a client that you're really excited about. And it could just be a picture of your coffee and a notepad or something like that. I wouldn't necessarily say that the image is where everything should be tied up. I think it has to do with the image and the words that go with it too, because they're telling a story in unison. Um, I think sometimes you just got to be okay with getting a little vulnerable too.
I
So,
agree. I agree. Okay, my last question for you is, how can anyone who is watching this now or in the future support you and the Side Garage?
yeah, so we are pretty much all online during this time. So you can support us by, um, you know, checking out our website, giving us a shout out on Instagram or social media. Our website is thesidegarage.com. Um, and I mean, really just high fives and smiles and good vibes and words. I mean, that's really all we ask for. So, um, yeah.
I love it. I love it. So everyone who is in attending today will get an email just right after this with all of the ways to reach out to the Side Garage crew, and just keep up with them on their social media platforms too. Ashleigh, thank you so much for spending your time with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate it. Have a great week. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.